Or even like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I'll grab you an assortment.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't care. If I go over, I always hate going over and not getting something.
Yeah. Like I said, I won't be.
No, that's fine. You gotta pick them.
Good evening, welcome to the May meeting of the Milwaukee area Woodturners. If you haven't found a seat, I see George is still checking somebody in. So usually we start off with George doing his membership and financial report. So, yeah, he's headed this way. So we got a good hot mic tonight, George. So come up here and take advantage of it.
Okay, so we have two guests tonight. Bill Ostrash,
pretty good, yeah.
oh, okay. Wozniak, okay, and Craig Flemel. These are guests for tonight.
Tom's here.
We have a new member that signed up, two new members that signed up just last week. Mary Schwaller and John McDaniel, and both of them are here tonight. Welcome here. And someplace in here I have money.
Even the name.
$10,521.21. That's a good number I can just throw right on. No, really, that's what we have. And we spent roughly 3,000. Kevin's coming up with some numbers. Over $3,000. I think we lost
about 3,500. I guess we lost 500.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So we needed a few more members to come on Saturday.
You're speaking about the Allen Lacer.
For the Allen Lacer event, yeah. Yeah. We spent around 3,500 and
About 3.
yeah, a little over 3. Yeah. So we needed a few more members to come, but that's okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't around talking much about the Allen Lacer thing, but I thought we acquitted ourselves very well, and we filled both workshop days, which I thought that was pretty heartening. Oh, Phil, they had critical minutes.
Yeah. 9.
7 and 9.
So you're saying we're hoping more people would have come. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still collecting. There are we have 107 members in the club, and we had let's say 13 slugs who have paid time.
Yeah, well, we gained some too.
Yeah, we have. It was really nice because we gained 2. We gained basically 4 recently, so we're doing well membership wise. So that's all I have. Yeah, that's one of the slugs.
I've been out of town.
Oh, okay.
You're on once. You brought money. That's great.
He brought money too, even better.
All right. So I do have a few announcements. I tried to get the word out. We were expecting to have Bob Leonard demonstrate his slipper bowls tonight, but Bob's wife experienced some sort of a fall or break while they were in Arizona. And when he emailed, actually, when he saw the announcement of the meeting 2 or 3 emails ago, he thought, well, I'm not back from Arizona yet, so it's going to be a little difficult to do the demo. So we switched the July demo, which is the extended show and tell, and it looks like most of you got the word. So we're going to take our time and do an extended show and tell tonight, and then Bob Leonard will do his bowls in July. And then we also think that in July, we're going to have a short presentation by a lady about making wig stands for cancer patients. So that's what's going on. I do have some other announcements I want to make now. I see Fred is working the camera tonight, and thank you, Fred, but we still need AV help, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Tom did show up. He's taking.
yeah, well, Tom, but
Yeah.
but Dave has other responsibilities, in particular with the guild.
I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dave has other responsibilities because of the guild. So we're looking for somebody who can kind of step into those shoes. And it would be good to have some redundancy and some depth in that position. So if somebody was sick, if Dave was sick right now, I don't even know if we could do a Zoom feed. If you got sick, I mean, or sicker than normal.
Yeah.
So we
Sick
need
enough.
somebody who's got an interest in that. If you have an interest in computers and audio visual stuff, talk to myself or talk to Dave Lane. If you talk to Dave, you're probably going to get roped into doing it part-time for a guild as well. So
Actually, we got somebody for the
you got
guild.
somebody for the guild.
Supposedly he came one night, so see what happens. If he comes back or not.
Like I said, you might get part-time, they're roped into doing it part-time for the guild as well, so. This club can't run without people to step in and do stuff. And over the Alan Lacer weekend, if you read the newsletter that I put together, I just can't say enough about the people that stepped up and helped out. Now, in this instance, most of them were board members, and that's okay. But really, without going through the whole list again, and I won't, because if I do, I'll forget somebody for sure. In fact, in the list, I think I forgot to mention Dave and Tom, who were here to do the video feed on Sunday or Saturday. I mean, and guys, guys and gals, I really appreciate it more than I can say. This club does work fairly well, and it's because of the people that step up to help out. Next item on my list, I've already taken care of, so I don't need to talk about that. I do want to remind members that we have a tuition grant program. When Alan Lacer was here, if you attended that, he talked about the fact that he teaches down at Mark Adams School of Woodworking, south of Indianapolis. If you're an established member of Milwaukee area Woodturners, and I think the say is you've got to have been a member for 2 years or more. If you're an established member of Milwaukee area Woodturners and you want to attend a class like Mark Adams School of Woodworking, as long as it's wood turning related, and then the list goes on. There's Arrowmont, there's John Campbell, there's the place in Door County called The Clearing. And those are just a few. Jimmy Clues does training out in Las Vegas, again, that's just barely scratching the tip of the iceberg. We can help support your tuition if you would like to sign up and attend one of those. You can talk to me, or you can go online on the website and see what the rules are. And there's an application form there. Virtual symposium. So the symposium, the AAW symposium, is early this year. It's held in Portland, Oregon, but they're going to do a virtual symposium in conjunction with the AAW symposium. I have a discount code that I can pass along to you that will get you $20 off your sign-up fee. So why don't I just publish it? It's because I kind of need to keep sort of track of how many of these I've handed out in the event that I exceed the number that I requested. It's a Mickey Mouse program from AAW's perspective. I don't know why they do it this way, but if you have not signed up for the virtual symposium, I have a discount code that'll get you $20 off of it. Let me know, I'll pass it along. We will have a workshop day this month on May 18th. We're planning to get the lays out. You can come down here, and we were gonna do natural edge bowls. We can still state that as the stated purpose. If you've never been to one of our workshop days, it's all about what you want to do. You bring your project, or if you don't have a piece of wood, you tell us what you would like to make. We'll try to find a piece of wood to bring along. We'll try to have 2 or 3 mentors here to help you do what it is that you want to do. And we have this lathe, and then we have the 2 Ricons, and even we can press the jet into service if we have to. So we have up to 4 lathes. Let me know if you'd like to participate in that, and we'll make arrangements to have things ready to go. Okay. We have a bunch, yeah, Kevin.
I have an update if you want.
Sure.
Okay, Alan Macer, weekend expenses were $3,631.54, and the income was $3,490. So we lost $141.54.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's closer than we thought we were by quite a bit. Okay. That's all the announcements I had. Board members, did I forget anything obvious? John?
Yeah, I've got a lot of cards off, a lot of books that are like 3, 4, 5 years old too.
How far?
3, 4, or 5 years.
Check your areas and see if you got one else and you forgot about.
Oh.
We got this new book on Alan Macer's new book.
That he was selling at the demo and at workshop. So we have one for our library.
Okay. We have a bunch of wood back there on the wood raffle table. Do I have a volunteer to run the wood raffle league? We told you being on the board, but you caused you a lot of pain.
It's a heavy responsibility.
Duties of the side.
Prefer red or blue?
Oh, remember I said something. Probably.
Buck a piece, 6 for $5. Well, how close are you to getting everything done, Tom? Can we go ahead? All right, okay. So extended show and tells are just like other show and tells, except we kind of encourage you to bring stuff in and talk about it. So if you have an item on the table, please come order in an orderly fashion. Oh, they finally took the clock that runs backwards down.
Yeah.
I was going to look at it and see what time it is. So it's 10 to 7. If we're not done, we'll try to take a break around 7:45 or so, maybe a little before then. Usually at these, there's quite a bit of time for fellowship. We encourage you to talk about what you learned in the piece that you did. And so I'm going to take prerogative here. As you come up, use the mic. Try to keep the piece you're talking about between your chin and your belly button. This is for the video guys, by the way, not and the people at home. So since I'm demonstrating that, this is a piece of ash that I have laying around the shop. I have rough turned it and only left it about that thick. And if you look at this, you'll see that it's crotch figure and it really worked on me. And that is as much as I could get on the edge of it. Now it does thicken out a little bit. So we had talked to Ron and Kevin and maybe somebody else about dyeing. So I thought that I would try to dye this and pick up some of the figure in this. I've used this joke with a couple people and it's got a little bit of lift when I took off, but I've come to find that dyeing is long periods of sanding interspersed with brief moments of color theory. But, huh? Yeah, well, yeah, I do try to, I'm supposed to, whatever. This is what I came up with. I like a lot of things about it. I also found out that dyeing will show you that if you're a poor sander and if you're a poor turner. If you see, if you look at this, there are actually a little bit of tool marks in the wood, plus there's a little bit of undulation in the surface. The back almost looks better, and then there's a lot of sanding scratches in that. But I enjoyed doing it, and I dyed it black, sanded it all back to leave the black in the grain. Then I dyed it red, and I didn't knock it back near as much, and then ended up with a yellow to get this effect. So I'm not.
What dye did you use?
Craft supplies. I'm cheap. A lot of these people know that. So they sell a little 2-ounce bottle of an alcohol-based dye for like $5 or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. So it's a Craft Supplies alcohol-based dye, and Kevin tells me it has wax in it. Shellac. 5% shellac. Okay, so and this has.
It's still lifted. The grain? When you used it, when you dyed it, did it lift the grain?
I don't know. Probably a little bit, but it got sanded back. And then this has a coat or two of wipe on poly, but it's not gloss, it's satin. And then I just thought I'd bring in my Allen Lacer box to prove that I actually do finish a project once in a while. I used a pointy live center and didn't turn it out. I didn't sand the inside of the lid. I over sanded this, so I lost my nice sharp curve on the edge of the lid. But there it is. It's got a couple of coats of Watco Danish oil on it, and it will get buffed. This will get buffed as well someday. So if you have something, you make your way up here in an orderly manner.
Hey, question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. Question?
What would you do different?
On this one?
Yeah.
Well, Alan Lacer reintroduced me to my scrapers. One thing I've been playing with at home since he was here that weekend is shear scraping, where you take a regular scraper and set it on a 45 degree angle on your tool rest. So I would probably shear scrape this, and I would look at it closer under the light before I took it off the lathe. I don't know.
Less sanding though.
I don't know. You're gonna say
So I brought in 5 pieces and a couple of my most challenging pieces. This is honey locust, which I think is the hardest wood I've ever turned. And when it came to sanding, I thought it was the easiest wood to sand because the tear out sanded out easier than a softer wood would. If that makes sense, that it didn't further tear it as you're sanding. Is the way I kind of that was my perspective on it. But this also was, as far as being challenging, it's probably the largest diameter that I've done. And it maxed out on my reverse turning as far as the truck I have to grab it. But this is one of my best pieces I've done, so I'm just really impressed with it myself, and I hope you are too.
Good job.
What kind of finish would be?
This is General Finishes bowl finish on all of these. This is a piece of maple that came from the maple tree in my front yard. And I had to trim it way back because I sleep under that tree. I was worried about someday coming down on my house. So anyway, so this was a piece I saved out of it. And it's one of those pieces you put in the garage and you're like, well, that's a beautiful piece of wood. Someday I'm going to turn that. And eventually I just said, you know, I'm just going to do it. And it was also challenging because half of the bark came off as I was turning it. And some of it I found after I turned further. So then I glued it back on and I had to get it to even out again on the inside because it was a larger diameter than where I was. But I got it all glued back on. There's a few little pieces that maybe I'm missing, but overall turned out pretty good. There's a couple of tool marks in it, but for the type of burl or whatever you want to call it that it is, it's pretty good. So yeah, three pieces of cherry burl. And you can see from this piece what happens when it is wet burl and it dries, which I kind of expected some of that, and is the reason why I turned it as a bottomless bowl so that I would rock it. It wobbles rather than rockers, but that's it.
But it doesn't fall down.
But looking at the top of it, it's definitely not flat like it was when I finished turning it. So it's I guess that's what I learned from it is what happens to burl when it dries different than standard wood.
Did you put a finish on it while it was still wet?
Yes. Did. May not have been 100%, might not have had finish on the bottom right away. But I finished the bowl before I finished the bottom. And then but it's still dried like that. And also these other two pieces, you can't really tell if they worked or not, but you can tell on the surface that it's got a texture, and it's the different ways that it's dried in the grain that made the texture. So I mean, maybe you want a perfectly smooth ball. Well, then I guess you need to wait till it dries. but if you know ahead of time that's going to texture like this, maybe that's what you want. So it's a learning experience, and also when we were at the woodworking show, someone came up and was talking about a cherry burl, and was looking at a bowl that Steve or olive form that Steve had there, and he said he had a burl and he was afraid to cut into it. He didn't know what he was going to do with it, and didn't know how to cut it or what he wanted to make out of it. And he saw something that Steve had there, and he said, you know, that's what I'm going to make out of it. And that's about the same time that I got these burls, and I was kind of like on one leg and then the other on what I was going to do with them. And basically, you know, my suggestion is just dive in, because you're going to learn something. Don't, you know, if you put it in the garage and wait until you know what you want to do or whatever, you're not learning something. Take the piece and just do something with it, and take the experience from it and move on.
Are those two pieces are those out of the same burrow?
These two are out of the same burrow. Let's see, this was outside, and I think this was like this.
Okay.
So this is my first piece, and I don't remember exactly why I didn't try to keep the edge, I think it was imperfect. Something about that side of it, that I decided to go this way with the bowl. And then the other side was better as far as the bark. And sort of cut in half that way. So, any other questions?
How do you get that shape? On that?
On that?
Yeah.
Well, if it was. So this is the shape of the burrow. And if it was wider, it would be round. Basically, is the reason for it. So if this were to continue up to this diameter, it would be concentric.
It's like a lot.
That also, that's pretty hard to explain. What was it begin with?
Is there a way that you can get more pieces out of a larger three-dimensional bowl besides one of these devices that can cut in and take a chunk
Not that I know of. These burrows were pretty small to begin with, that to try to save something out of the inside of it was that possible anyway.
Okay. It's probably a shame to see a lot of the chips on the ground is all your inside of the grill, which might have been another piece, so.
Right.
I thought I would go early because some of these pieces are like so stunning. And I'm pretty new at this yet. I did make a sassafras bowl from my daughter's trees in Michigan, and so I thought I'd bring that in just to show what sassafras look like. One thing I've learned about doing bowls with a little bit of bark on them is I made a ginkgo bowl once, and I'm moving along, turning it with some bark features on the outside, and making this just the right thickness. And then the next thing I knew, I put a hole right in the side of the bowl, because I forgot that this is thinner than the rest of the wood. And so what I did was I turned it even thinner and made a hole on the other side, so now it's art, right? But anyway, that's I was turning this one and I almost did the same thing. So, but anyway, that's a sassafras bowl from Michigan.
No, that's no.
While I was turning it, it had a really nice spicy smell to it. Sassafras has a really pleasant odor. So, and it turned really well. I'm kind of new at turning, and I'm sure there's quite a few tool marks on the inside, but I tend to sand like crazy because it's the best I could do. So, and then I also turned a spalted maple bowl that I got the wood from my neighbor. There's a piece of this on the back. The first time I turned a bowl out of this wood, I turned it rather moist. And I let it sit, I kind of finished it, let it sit on the counter, and you talk about a rocker. Then I was wondering, and I'm going to do this sometime, is I'm going to turn a piece of the same stuff when it's really moist and see if I can put some bones on it and actually get it to be oval, but leave enough wood on the bottom, then I'll return it so it's flat. So it'll end up being a little more of an oval bowl. Has anyone done that before? So you put, I don't know, bands or straps or something to kind of actually so the tree is oriented this way, pull it this way because it seems to curl kind of towards the outside, vertically. Has anyone done that?
I think they kind of do that with cowboy hats.
Yeah, that's how they got it done. They're done real wet like that, and then they put them into a form to get that curl to the brim.
Okay,
Maybe with a shift for the head too, a little bit, that it's a little.
all right, so I can make a hat then. So anyway, I was really impressed with the marbling of this sugar maple that was in my neighbor's. Just one of his felled trees in the back, and he's got a whole bunch more of these and waiting to go harvest more, so.
You may have better luck if you use black cherry for that.
For warping,
Warping, yeah,
okay,
because that works a lot more than maple.
so black cherry may work better. Okay. All right, so that's it.
I brought in an unfinished piece. And I'm trying to find out the best way to turn it. This is my piece. It's bird's eye. And I really don't want to start it without having some help. So if anybody's got some suggestions for me, talk to me during break or something, that'd be great.
Make a nested solution.
Don't wanna screw it up. What, purchase it? But, yeah, so if anybody can give me a few tips, I'd appreciate it. That's my unfinished goal. Thank you.
Back in February, late February, Donna Zell's band, Feel, I believe her name, is that correct?
Zills, man.
Zills, okay. Did a remote demonstration for the club, showing how she does her carving, and in this case, she uses pyrography, and painting on the outside of her vessels. And she makes really beautiful things. And she sort of describes her whole life story about how she wound up becoming, I guess, very well known in the art world as far as woodturning is concerned. I've always wanted to do that kind of work. I did a couple little pieces a long time ago, and I never pursued it. But that program sort of stimulated my imagination here. So I decided I'm going to start working on some of this carving and painting embellishments. Now, most of you folks know that I do a lot of artistic embellishments on my pieces. So this happens to be a piece of simple little bowl out of maple, and the carving is done with simple. I don't have any really fancy tools here. I just have a Dremel drill and a little high-speed dental tool that's for doing very fine work. And the vast majority of this was done with a Dremel drill, simple bits, nothing fancy here, just cheap little bits you can buy on Amazon, little carbide bits, different shapes, you know, for about $20 or $30, you get about a dozen bits. And they work pretty decent. I bought some other bits for some other pieces here, and the finish on this is basically everything is taped off and then airbrushed black, just because we put a black coat on everything, and then you do what's called the dry brushing. She just demonstrated dry brushing. Basically, if you're putting acrylic paint on here with very fine brushes, a fan brush or a flat brush, and you take off almost as much paint as you can, and then just lightly brush on color. In this case, I brushed on several different colors. So that's a simple little piece. This is a cherry with a walnut burl base on it. And I initially, these are turned as two different pieces. There's a little more than tenon in between these two that they're glued together. I cut a groove in here and I filled that with crushed opal. I had some left over from a few other projects. And then I decided to do the carving in here. The carving here was done with a little handheld high-speed arrow tool with a simple little bit. This one was done by hand. That one was done by hand. These other ones I'll describe those. But anyhow, after it was carved out, and the carving is actually quite quick. It's like about this fast. And I can carve all this sort of detail here in about a half an hour or less. It doesn't take a lot of time. I airbrushed it, a bunch of different colors. I did this dry brushing on the top surface. Well, you have this sort of black on the top surface. I don't know if you can see that. And there's also several different colors I airbrushed, and then I gave it a coat of clear pearlescent color so it gives a bit of a shine. This is a red cedar, not a branch, it's actually a small red cedar tree. The pith is right down the center here. And I got this wood from Mel Mickey. He gave this to me, and I did a few, actually gave me a lot of red cedar, which was in really seriously bad shape. But I turned it on, and all of them turned out really, really great. And anyway, I turned this, and it sat around for a while, and I thought, I don't really like it yet. So I decided, okay, boom, you know, this whole carving demonstration got me going on this. So I decided, I drew out all these funky little lines, it's almost like veins or branches or something, interweaving branches. And I carved all that out with the high-speed tool, all by hand, just held it there on an apron, and I usually have a large towel or something, and I just carved that all out, and I came back with my high-speed tool, and I just did all the little texturing. You just tap it like that. This took a little longer, maybe 3 to 4 hours to carve this out, but it changed the appearance of it drastically from what it was before. So,
Did you put a finish then on that when you were finished?
I did. All of these are just polyurethane finish. This is satin, that's a semi-gloss. And this already, and this I think is maybe 3 coats, including this area, the 3 coats of poly. This is a piece of maple. Again, carving was done on here. The carving for all the little, what looks like little circles, is basically 3 or 4 different sizes of round bits, and you just punch it in. Keep doing it. Everything is taped off carefully, and then, like for instance, this is taped off for me to do the airbrushing work. And if you and the tape you should use is tape that is specifically designed. 3M makes it, and also a company called Frog. I think that's the brand name of it, where it's specifically designed to be used so paint does not creep underneath it. You don't want that because it really a pain if the paint creeps underneath it. If it does, and oh, by the way, all this stuff is already varnished before I do any carving. So if after I do the painting, and if it does creep underneath it, you can just very, very carefully scrape it off with an X-Acto blade or something, and not wreck the varnish, or not wreck the piece. You don't want the paint soaking into the wood. So this way it won't soak into the wood if you have the varnish on here. Again, the black paint went down, and then light dry brushing with several different colors over the top of this particular one. My final piece is, again, carving on this outside with a slightly larger carver. This one I did use my Dremel with, what's the brand name? Cutsaw, is that correct? Yeah. I don't buy too many of those because they're kind of expensive. I only have 2, but it does a great job. And I'm going to just sort of quickly explain how I do this. This is mounted in my lathe. A jam chuck on this side, tailstock up in here. It's loose, it's not powered. And I bring my tool rest out to close to this, within a quarter of an inch. And my Dremel drill kind of has this little flare on the very end of it to keep your fingers from getting too close. And I just rock it. So as I hold it with this hand, and I drop it down, I cut a groove, I move it a little bit, and it gives me different lengths of carving. I can do this in about half an hour. Really, really fast. And, oh, this is a piece of oak and maple that I had. And this top is larch, which is the same as American larch tree, which is a tamarack tree. We had a monstrous tree, but our property north that came down 72 feet tall. That came crashing down, and I was able to salvage a few pieces on it. There we go. And a lot of these on the inside all have the metal reactive paint and acrylic paint, and it gives you that great wonderful patina. So. That's it. Any questions? I just wanted to mention one thing, Tony, if you don't mind, this is, and Kevin, I'm just gonna sort of make a comment about the amount of money we spend and make on our, like, the laser demonstration. I helped set up the 501c3 for this club a few years ago, about 5 or so years ago. And it specifically states we're an educational corporation. And so the whole point of, and Tony, I think you would concur with me, the whole point of doing these demonstrations, the remote demonstrations or a live in-person demonstration, is to educate our members. It would be nice if we made money, but we don't necessarily have to make it. It's like if we're close, and we're pretty close. So if we lose $100 or we lose $500, that's not the point. The point is, you know, dozens, if not 50 to 100 members who learn a lot of neat stuff. I just want to say that.
Thanks, Tom.
Got a couple pieces here tonight. This piece was in the wood raffle. It was a Russian olive, and then it had some like burl on the edges a little bit, so I tried to retain some of that, the natural edge, and most of the bark obviously came off, which it normally does. The one thing I'll say about Russian olive, stinks. It smells terrible. It's not fun to turn just for that. It smells so bad. But I tried to turn it nice and thin, make a nice little bowl out of it, so it turned out pretty good. And then this is just black cherry, and this also came out of the wood raffle. The powder post beetle's got it this one, so it's got a lot of beetle tracks in it and stuff like that. But I wanted to play around with a little bit of wood burning, and I didn't see Donna's recent demo, but I actually saw her in person in symposium in Virginia a few years back, and she was fantastic. Very, very good demo. So this is burn. It's got about a coil tip, and then it's, you know, I've got 2 one way and 3 the other way, and I kind of made a pattern, and I sat around and then burned. And I had turned the beads in. I've got a couple of D-way beading tools that work really, really nice. And so I turned the beads in, and then I burned in the edge like that to make it something a little bit different. And the one thing I'll say about that is that my shop is in the basement, so I was fortunate I could open the window and have the fan behind me and try and blow the smoke out, but I could still smell the smoke a couple days later. And so it's and you got to have the burner hot. You gotta be able to just move right along. So. And these both have teak oil finish and pop, so that's it.
Ron? Yeah. If you're interested, you recorded the
I did. I saw that. I haven't had a chance to actually watch, but yeah, I did see that it was on there. Yeah. And like I said, she was very, very good in person. She's very knowledgeable. So yeah.
Right, so this is the first piece. This was my first attempt at a bowl from a board. So this is poplar. Just a 8-quarter piece of lumber that I bought at the unfortunately now defunct Urban Wood Lab.
Actually, they moved to Grafton.
But it's by appointment only.
Oh,
I kind of get the feeling that they're
another
trying to phase it out.
They start maybe opening once in a while on Saturdays back in Caledonia. On what I talked to one of the guys about. So I don't know when that's gonna happen. I just have to probably keep watching their newsletter or whatever they have. But one of the guys I did run into, and they said they might just do it on a Saturday once in a while, open on a Saturday there, so they don't know.
That would be great, but anyway, it was two 6-inch pieces, so I glued them together. And then, of course, you know, cut out the circle and cut the 45-degree angle and put it together. And I just think the grain in this wood is just beautiful. I mean, I'm very partial to poplar. I think it can have some pretty spectacular grain going on. So anyway, for a first attempt, I'm pretty happy at it. I think happy about it. I think it turned out okay. And this is the third in my clothespin bowl. I guess if you have 3, it's a series, right? But yeah, these are just clothespins. I just buy a big bag of them, take them apart, kind of cut them up. I like the geometry of them. I don't know why. I just think they're kind of cool. Now I use a SVG application on my computer, and I just kind of lay out, you know, a design. It's kind of a kaleidoscope sort of thing. I had a plan for the colors, but what with one thing and another, the mold kind of ended up being like a little bit of a dump pot. So that's why it's sort of, you know, a little bit of everything. But what's interesting is that the front of it is very sort of purple and red dominant, but the back of it is a completely different color situation. It's kind of blue and green sort of dominant. So you get 2 different looks depending on how you look at it. So I enjoy these, but they take a lot out of me, and resin is just such a mess. So I do like maybe 2 a year. I have to forget about what a pain the other one was before I do a new one. So
Take the smell.
what, the resin or the toothpicks? I mean the clothespins.
Well, turning the assembly when you got the resin in, it also.
Well, yeah, I don't. First of all, I don't have a pressure pot, so I pour very thin layers of resin. So it takes a long time to build it up, and then even then, unavoidably, there's still some, you know, some air bubbles. So until I get it down to a certain point, it's just shards of sharp resin everywhere. But then it smooths out and then it gets to be okay. And I use a combination of traditional and carbide tools on it, depending on what seems to be working best at the moment. The clothespins, I mean, they're crap wood, so they don't turn very well. But if you're lucky, they soak up enough resin that they kind of, you know, have a little more substance to them. So it works out okay. A lot of sanding, lot of CA glue to fill in the little air bubbles and whatnot. But yeah, the results kind of cool.
How long does it take for the resin to dry where you can work it?
Well, I think this mold was 3 inches when I started, and I pour like a 1/4 inch at a time, and then I give it about 3 days between layers. But it's just kind of an incidental thing, you know. It just sits there, and I have resin, and I pour it in there, and I do other things, and I pour some more resin in there, and I do other things. And so it was probably 4 or 5 months from start to finish when I finally turned it. Yeah. And this one is, I don't really know what this is. It's the centerpiece on my dining room table right now. But so this last summer, we went to Portugal, Lisbon. And Portugal, if you did not know, is the world's leading exporter of pork. And so if there is anything that can possibly be made of pork, you will find it there for sale at some kiosk somewhere. And so I said, I want to do something with that. So what I did, I didn't actually buy pork, but I bought a bunch of these postcards that are made from pork. And they all feature pictures of these ceramic tiles, which is something else that Lisbon is famous for. These tiles are all over the buildings everywhere. It's just really a beautiful, beautiful city. So I brought back 5 or 6 of these. And then I knew that whatever I made, I wanted to use olive because it just, I don't know, it just seemed like I should. So I was looking for olive bowl blanks and was shocked at how expensive they are. So I ended up buying 2 just sort of rough turned bowls off of Etsy or something like that. And so I got them and I turned them both more or less true, put them together for a hollow form. I was going for a sphere, but I didn't have enough material to work with to really finish the sphere. So it's just sphere-like. And so then the base and the collar are teak. And the finial is another piece of olive that I had sitting around. And then of course I wanted the cork tile things to be an inlay, but I didn't have enough wood to work with to make it an inlay. So they're an outlay with some gold cord around. And then on top of everything else, I dropped it and it broke. So I put it back together, and I prefer to think of that there's a Japanese technique called kintsugi, or maybe it's even a philosophy, which is where if a piece is broken, you repair it. You don't try to hide the repair because the break is part of its history. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. This is exactly kintsugi.
Shoot, I got a whole garage full then.
But anyway, this is another piece that just kind of sat on my shelf of shame for a long time because I just didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't turning out the way I wanted. And I finally decided to finish it. And I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I've got lots more of those postcards, so I'll probably try something else at some point. But it's a nice memory of my trip to Portugal.
She did a bowl out of a flat piece of lumber. I did this hollow form out of I think it was about 1x6 piece of maple. I had 3 or 4 feet long. Cut the squares. Now I did the 1, 2, 3 at the bottom and another 3 at the top. Now before I put them together, I just glued up the 3 and the 3. I used, with the bottom half, a small faceplate to attach it. It was attached to the lathe, like this. So I turned the bottom and roughly the outside, turned it so I could put a 4-jaw chuck at the bottom. Okay, so then after I had that pretty well turned, the inside. Well, no, I didn't do the inside. I did the outside. So then I put the 4-jaw chucker here, turned the inside, and sanded it somewhat. And then, let's see, the next step was to basically, I had the bottom half done. So now I took the top half and I used like a screw chuck to attach it here. Turn the inside so I got to about 1/4 inch of that screw chuck, and again sanded that. And then once I had the 2 halves pretty well hollowed out, I had maybe about 3/8 of an inch thick. I glued them together. Now then I had anybody on, so let's see what else did. Okay, well then I kind of rough shaped the whole thing. The screw chuck, or I had brought the tailstock up, so I'm just holding it here and the 4-jaw chuck at the bottom. Got it pretty well rough shaped. Got the whatever like I wanted it. Cut some grooves in here, put some paint in there, and I had to go back over it a little bit because I got paint all over everything. Once I had that pretty well shaped out, the last thing I had to do was just to take a Forstner bit and drill a hole in it. Now, when you get down to the last piece there, the last part, you gotta do it pretty slowly so it didn't break out or anything. And then I, sanded the inside and the top here a little bit. Now, the one problem I had was I use what's it called, Midwax antique oil. They don't make that anymore. And so I had, I think, one coat on and I was out, so I thought, oh, I'll go get some more. Well, I couldn't find it anyplace, so I went online and it says, Midwax says, we don't make it anymore, so I ended up with, Midwax makes, I think, a tongue oil finish that was, they said was very similar. So I finished it with a couple coats of the tongue oil, yeah, simple little piece of maple, a flat piece of maple, put it together, got a nice hollow form out of it. So the guy who the body pump over where I go had a bunch of wood, said, I'll give it to you. And he gave me a couple pieces of this walnut. And it looked really, really, really crappy. Because it's been sitting in his shed, drying out, and raccoons are running over it and everything. But I wanted to try the rough edge bowl. And so I did, and ended up, showing my wife, what my progress was, and she says, take it back downstairs and you need to do more work on it. So I did, and next time I brought it up, it was, you can use a little more, a little bit more, and it's okay. It's not the greatest wood that usually when you have a nice piece of walnut, you got the real dark and the light and all that. And, but I guess I'm pretty much happy with it compared to some of the other rough edge bowls that I've made like this. I finished it with wipe on poly by Minwax, and it's okay. It's still got a little bit of pitting. But one of the things that I did learn from the Alan Lacer event was, like Tony said, using the skews. And I'm going to go back, and the finish that you can get with the skew work that he showed us how to do, I thought it was just, it was great. It was just great. So I learned a lot, and I don't know. I'll try selling that at a show.
Yeah. So maybe it's a blessing that you didn't have a tight line between the white and the dark, because how do you use sand and keep that dark from getting into the how do you keep the dark sanding from
well, that's where I learned the skew work. If you have really sharp skew,
you don't have to sand.
You don't have to sand. You shouldn't have to the better you are with your tools, the less sanding you really have to do. I learned that in this book too. Just, you forget those things. And take criticism from your wife, because it's always, it's good.
Tony, I also finished my Alan Lacer box. And when I do a box like this, I like to actually size them to fit Q-tips in here. And I've also found that if you're going to do that, do not use a polyurethane or oil finish, because it takes so long to outgas. It'll be almost a half a year before somebody's willing to use it for that. In the case of this box, it was a little too deep for Q-tips, so I have a filler. And I left it intentionally loose, because if somebody's going to use it for Q-tips, they can take it off. Finish wise on this one, I used just a water-based polyurethane. I'm in the process of trying to use up a lot of scraps. So here is a ash bowl, natural edge. I leave it quite thick because bark can be quite delicate. It can get dropped and damaged. So Natural edge bowls, I'll use them rather thick. This is some buckthorn I had. It makes a really nice, pretty bowl. These two bowls, both from the same piece of wood. One is Mahoney's walnut oil. One is polyurethane finish. They're for an acquaintance that I know, or that a tree came down in their yard. Smaller straps. I make a lot of these. Now, at first glance, you might think they're pens. Actually, they're cordless word processors. They're quite advanced because they will work in any language. They also meet all green energy requirements, no batteries, no charging, no Wi-Fi. We discussed it when Ellen Lacer was here. And one of the things Ellen pointed out is that you sometimes have to put tape around your filler because it's loose. This one is a little bit loose, and I'll take care of that later on. But what I normally do is I drill with a 5/32 jobber bit. 5/32 generally fits these fillers very snug. If you go with the longer drill bits that'll drill the whole length of the hole, it's usually a couple thousandths larger than the 5/32, and it's always going to fit loose. So I usually finish up with a 9/64 to go the rest of the way. I drill with a chuck in the tailstock. I don't hand drill it like Ellen Lacer said to do. I find that drilling straight with your tailstock gives you a better straight hole, especially if you're going to drill something that has a very, very wide grain like this pine, where it can follow the grain. So these are fun to make and easy to pass out. Yes?
Do you drill before or after you turn?
I drill before. I bring the tail, after I drill the hole, I bring the tailstock up to support it. Now, I should point out, generally on something like pine or some of these other woods, after you apply your polyurethane, it might be a little rough. And you want to go back and sanding it. So what I've actually made is a jam chuck that goes on my headstock using a 3/4 10 nut and the robust safety drive center. And I put a 5/32 drill bit in there. I stick this onto the 5/32 drill bit. I have a pad on a jam chuck on the other side, bring it up here. I can now sand them, refinish them, continue. And when I finish these with polyurethane, I don't do it on the lathe. I do it with nitrile gloves. I take my nitrile gloves, I just pour finish on there, and with my nitrile gloves, I just smear it all over, set it on a nail board, and don't worry about it. Come back, if you give it another application within 24 hours, you don't have to worry so much about sanding because you're going to get adhesion. If it goes past 24 hours, you should probably sand. And you can sand those using that jam chucks that I made. So they're fun to make, it's nice to pass out. I'll pass these around if somebody wants to look at it.
What I intended to talk about tonight was finishing the bottom of a bowl. So this is a donut chuck or a captured ring chuck or whatever. Probably has multiple names. In fact, if you check out Alan Lacer's book, he has an article in there on how to make one a little different than this. But you know, what he and a lot of other turners say is that you don't want to leave any evidence on your bowl as to how it was held on the lathe. You want to remove the tenon. For example, here's a cherry bowl. Had a really peculiar grain for cherry. It's got a food safe finish on it, so it's polymerized linseed oil, and then it's got a beeswax mineral oil finish that I make myself in a double boiler. So it's like 1/3 beeswax, 2/3 mineral oil, and you just heat it in a double boiler, put it on, wipe it off. So that's cherry with food safe finish. I've never seen cherry look like that before. But as far as for tonight's purposes, you can see that the foot is turned off. So has a tenon on it, it goes in here. I'll just quickly show you how this works. So faceplate, it's 3/4 inch plywood, attach your faceplate on there, and it just goes on like that. If you leave, you see this little nub here, the center hole is in there. You can bring up your tailstock with your live center and have these loosened up and put your center in there. And now you put this hole back into center position. And now it's captured in here. I have multiple rings. So here's another ring that would be for a larger bowl. I probably have 6 or 7 of these rings. This is just plastic tubing that you can buy at the hardware store. You just slit it like that and put it over, and that will protect your bowl. Because typically when my sequence is the bowl is rough turn, it dries, so that's the state this one is in. It's still drying, warping. I'll finish the inside and the outside, sand it, and then the last thing I'll do is I'll put it in this chuck, turn the tenon off, cut the bottom clean, sand it, and then it's ready for finish. So multiples of these, if you make them, there's lots of plans on the internet, but the idea would be to take a bunch of rings like this, roughly cut on a bandsaw, put them on here, get them in position. You can see that they're marked here so that they always go back in the same order. Whatever your marking system is, but I know that they go like this. They're all attached in here, and then they're turned round at the same time so that they all are as balanced as you can get plywood to be and the same size. So, and then, yeah, so just, and I have like multiple sizes of these rods as well. These, they're actually 1/4 inch holes, but just with a wing nut and a washer on the back. And I have short ones and I have some that are much longer. And if you have something that's really long, like Jim Andreessen turned, you could use, was that all thread, and then put nuts and bolts at both ends. But for this, I like to put the carriage bolts here, and then the wing nuts on the back, so that if I'm turning here and I get careless, I've not done it yet, but I just get a little round carriage bolt on the knuckle, not a sharp wing nut. So that's, yeah. Any questions? Thank you. I got a lot.
Well, Kevin has that on there. Just another thing that you can do to use this is, you've got a 1-turn bowl and it's kind of warped, whatever. This piece here, your bowl, like for instance, like this one. You look how it is. You could actually still mount this in a donut shop, and you could put in little spacers just with a hot glue gun, get little spacers, so this would be kind of balanced out, and then you can return your tenon here and then flip it around and finish it, second turning. So you can even mount weird stuff on that, and you can mount like this on there. So on this piece here, you would just have like a little mound turned, like a little half semicircle, put some padding that you can get from like Hobby Lobby or whatever, and then
you know, that sits it up from the base. You get this perfect, clamp it in, it's not gonna break, you can turn this, you can put beads on the bottom, turn this completely off and scoop it out or whatever, but, you know, even this kind of stuff, you know, you can have a big mound and even like do like this on this kind of thing. So I mean, donut chucks are just, you use it all the time. I mean, it's, yeah.
Every bowl is how it finishes.
So, I mean, you can make it a nice bottom. Yeah, those things are great.
Excellent.
Jim's the last one. Is there anybody other than Jim? Oh, okay.
I don't need.
No, we want to.
Oh, last couple of weeks I got into like the soccer ball. Met a friend, he's down in Florida, and he makes a lot of different spheres with a lot of different geometric shapes and just kind of some crazy stuff, and actually was able to kind of visit his shop and, you know, share some ideas and whatever. And if you do any segmenting, there's a gentleman named Jerry Bennett, and he came up with what's called the wedgie sled, which just about everybody and their brother uses a wedgie sled to cut segments. I don't, but everybody else. Anyway, Jerry has on YouTube, it's called a barn tour, and this guy just makes, you know, the craziest stuff. Anyway, in the background on this video, there's a sled, there's a soccer ball, and there's a tilted, slanted sled in the background. So my friend Paul sees this in the background, kind of calls me up and we text it back and forth. And instead of having just a flat sled and always tilting the blade exactly, you know, coming up with more of a ramp sled so you can leave your blade 90 degrees, you know, do whatever. Bring out your ramp sled, cut some crazy angles for whatever you're going to make and not have to mess around with your little son. You know, resetting it and taking an hour or two just to get the angles correct. So, if you look on YouTube, guy's name is Paul Bartlett. And about a week ago, we just posted a video where he has, I think, 7 different soccer balls. Halves, takes one half off, another ball. Half off, another smaller, another one smaller. So, he's got them from about this size down to almost like a marble. So, we kind of got to talking, and with segmenting sled that I use spacers, so I don't have to like remeasure every time I want, you know, a different length segment. So all I have a permanent stop block, and then I just plug in spacers. So I kind of use that same concept with that tilted sled. So that's kind of what he used for this video, and I mean, it is so slick. It makes it so easy. So like, you know, I've made soccer balls, all these different size shapes. And a soccer ball is made up of 20 hexagons.
Jeez.
And 12 pentagons.
Oh, Christ.
And like I say, the tilt of the paper saw, I mean,
Gotta have
you have to
some
have a different
patience.
tilt. So like, to make this side ball, these would be hexagons like this with a different angle, and pentagons like this side with a different angle. And as long as they meet up like that, you're gonna get a round sphere. So this is like 20 actually it's 20.905, and it's 15.466 angle. Once you get that angle, you are like golden and you're good to go. And with spacers, you can just kind of start cutting and just go nuts and get, I mean, these were like the first 4 I did. I did a whole bunch of these small ones, but the first 4 I did, I tried different glues. So I was kind of stubborn and I used Type-On original on the first one. And the set time is pretty short, so you gotta really fly when you're wrapping this up and putting it together. Then this Paul uses epoxy. So I've never used epoxy, I thought, this is the way to go. So like these four here aren't finished yet. I can put like a spray polyacrylic on the ring today, but I want to epoxy finish these. But he actually epoxy finishes the balls that he makes, and that's how he glues them up. So if you ever use epoxy to glue something up, especially like something like this, it is an absolute mess. You got gloves or slipping, you put rubber bands and bands on, and sliding off, and you know, now you're kind of panicking. You know, it's 20 minutes, and I'm still fighting this thing in, and kind of like pre-tape, and the tape kind of breaks off, and you know, a couple pieces come off, and it's total nightmare. So then the next thing I did is I used Type-On Extend, and they say that can go like about 20 minutes. So I kind of got it down to about 9 minutes for like a smaller ball. And depending on how you kind of tape it, not without getting too detailed, the angle of the tape can make the wrap job quicker. So I kind of learned a whole bunch of stuff once I kind of got into this. But the tilt of the sled was kind of like a total game changer. It take a lot more wood than you think. But anyway, it's kind of a fun project, and Paul has made some crazy a rhombus, which is kind of a parallelogram, like 60 of them. And once they're cut and wrapped, the actual, like, you know, when John did his demo on doing sphere train balls, you know, probably takes less than 10 minutes to turn this around. This is not with a sphere jig. This is just, you know, probably 3 flips on cup centers, and you're just getting rid of that shadow. There's these facets here, so once you get those facets off, you got a round ball. So as crazy as it sounds, turning them around is totally the easy part of this project. It's fun challenge. It's kind of a fun challenge.
Well, put it back together now.
So I was at the clearing last week. And I spent the week with Rob Nelson. No, he said hi. Rob brought sycamore from Antigo, and he said, yes, he's going to grow there. I learned a lot from this bowl. It came off the lathe. Rob looked over his glasses at me, and while it was flying on the floor. But we did resurrect it. It was wrecked on the bottom and on the edge, smaller than it was, but and he taught a lot about form and where to look at other pieces of art for form. And he made me, I do this all the time, the transition between the wall and the base of the bowl is always too sharp, and so he made me redo it and make a smoother transition. So it would look round everywhere you looked at it. But, and I am super frustrated with I bought a, what's it called? Branding iron. Such a pain. I can never get it flat enough that it'll look right on the bottom, so I think I'm gonna give that up, but that's it.
Well, after that, I also made the wedgie sled. I'm fairly new here, so I've never done anything like this. So I made the sled, which was okay, and I understand it. And these rings were all made together. They're not half rings and like that, held together with hose clamps and that. It came out really good. My sled is good. I'm happy with what I made. I took a lot of time with it, but I didn't want to do it. I think this is hard maple, and walnut. I'm not really sure about the wood because it's been in my shop for another project for a long time. Not wood turning, I just got into this, so this is this wood that was laying around. And I wanted to try the segment stuff. And it's like, okay, I got some scrap wood here, I'll do it. I'm very happy with the way it came out. I did 4 out and I turned it, then I did a couple more and I turned the inside and I glued it together that way. And I had it in the chuck and I had my other what do you call it? Where do you turn it on? So I put the ring in there and put them onto here, so they were centered. It worked out really good, centering them out, no problem. I don't know, I'm happy with what came out. I have a question though. I got a piece of a log, half of a log. I think it's honeysuckle. It's got the red. It's white, but it's got red veins going through it. Like one side. Box cell. Okay, box cell. Right. So I got this thing and I was like, wow, this is going to be cool with these veins going through it. It was a solid piece of wood, 7 inches wide. So I put it on the bandsaw, cut a 7-inch circle. Okay. Put it on the lathe, it's on the lathe right now because that's, wait a minute. Well, I start making the bottom and all of a sudden I got a little hole. Like, where the hell did that come from? I mean, when I cut it round, there was solid. Well, right now I got a hole probably about that big in the center of this damn thing. How, I don't understand how this can be because the piece I started with was all wood. I swear it was all wood. Yet the whole inside was rotten. So
Hey, Bob, he was using your pipe, I think.
I mean, is it just that or that he made him?
Well, there was wood in there rattling around. So what it's gonna, I did the outside sort of up. And yeah, it's real jagger like this. And I'm now trying to go into it, but I'm just taking the cutter and going straight in. I'm not, and I don't know if this thing's gonna blow up on me or not. I'm definitely standing back, you know. But if it comes out, if I can get that without blowing it up, I think it's going to be a cool piece of art because it actually, it's a big hole like over here. I also found out another one over there as I'm turning this thing up. It's weird. I never, maybe somebody, this isn't normal, right?
No, that's normal. Box cell is normal.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, box cell depends on the box on the inside. That's a lot of towns, like villages, yeah. You don't allow in their village, like I think Greendale doesn't allow box elders because they'll rot on the inside and then they'll fall on the houses and stuff.
Okay, that explains it. I mean, I was really surprised when I started into this thing, like, you know, I had a good piece of wood here, I thought. So anyway, that's it.
It also has a tendency to split.
Yeah, that's when it's gonna blow up on you. Thanks a lot.
CA rules.
Maybe I'll take that one.
Don't forget your face shield.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.
All right, we're gonna take a break. It's 8 o'clock, so buy your wood raffle tickets from Lee, and I think we're actually gonna have more wood than is on the table. We have some stuff for Steve. We're gonna use the Allen Lacer stuff, put it on the table. Anything that's here, including that nice big piece of that I saw. Okay, so see Lee for your tickets, and let's try to reconvene here no later than 8:20, that's 20 minutes. Gives you a little bit of time to go upstairs and shop before we'll call more than one of your numbers. We have a table full of wood back there. There is some of the practice wood that we brought in for the Allen Lacer thing. So, like if you want some of that, just grab a piece, especially if your number's been called. And then when the first numbers are called and the first people to get their numbers called have had a chance to go and get the nice pieces off of the table, we'll turn it loose and let you clean up the table. You'll understand what we mean by that. Where's Lee? Are you ready to start drawing numbers?
Sure.
You gonna stand over there and do it with your clarity? That's all right if you. I don't have a voice anymore to do that.
They're all gonna be
Let's step up by the knife, step up by the mic, yeah.
They're all gonna be 370, so I won't say that every time. 378. Three, 6, 2. Three, 3, 8. Three, 2, 3. 403. 403. 390. That's me. 334.
I think 340 was the one. It would be 34, I think. 334, yeah. All right. Next one's 341. Just go get a piece of wood. Don't worry about turning the ticket in. Hurry up before the good stuff's gone. Next one, 331. 331. Sing out if your number's called.
What song you want to hear?
Next one, 350. Next one, 355. How first you might be able to have 2 pieces. There you go. Sure. Rather listen to you than me anyway.
399. 347. 324. 329. 332. 386. 335. 392. I don't. Might not be allowed. 368. 401. 348. 397. 354. 372. Is that you? All right. Yes. 345. 345. 321. 320.
What, 10 to 3, I think, on Mondays.
I'm not sure the hours, no.
And they don't have lots left, according to what Doug said. They're going through all the way up to Grafton.
373.
Might be open limited Saturdays. But they don't know when it's stored. Yeah.
Come on now.
It's gonna be by appointment only. You gotta make an appointment to send the stuff.
369.
All right, if anybody got a ticket and never got a piece of wood? No, everybody, okay, good. So everything that's left on there, if you see a piece on there, regardless of whether you bought tickets or not, grab it, take it home. Some of that stuff is actually gonna go in the dumpster, so don't be embarrassed. Take it to home. Thanks, everybody. Have a great month. See you back there next month.